Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm Kevin Schroeder, and I'm here with my co-host, Ed Mamet. Say hello, Ed.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be back for another episode of Cop Talk.
Okay, so today's guest is Alison Esposito. Alison is running for the GOP nomination of the New York 18th Congressional District. She's born and raised in Highland Mills, New York. Her father is retired Chief Michael Esposito, who is well-liked and well-respected on the police department. She also has over 25 years in the NYPD. She retired as the rank of Deputy Inspector. And she also ran for Lieutenant Governor with Lee Zeldin. Alison, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, gentlemen.
So, Alison, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself? Where you grew up, born, raised, your career with the police department?
So it feels like I'm alive 100 years. I feel like still so much more to accomplish. I grew up in Highland Mills, which is in Orange County,
Right.
which is just outside of New York City. My father was a cop. When my parents got married, they wanted close enough to be accessible to the city, and then far enough where we had a bit of a backyard and streets to close down and play in and all that kind of good stuff. So back then, Woodbury, Highland Mills, it's a bedroom community of New York City, but it's all cops and firefighters. That's who could afford it. It was close enough to the city to work there and far enough away where they could afford to live there. So we grew up there. It was myself, my brother, my sister, and obviously my parents. And I was there. I was a volunteer at the Woodbury Ambulance Corps. I was a lifeguard for like 350 years at Lake Tyarati in Harriman State Park. My brother and sister worked for the Res, which is Earl Reservoir in Woodbury. And we have phenomenal family memories there, phenomenal childhood memories. We used to play Capture the Flag. The entire neighborhood would get involved. It was great. But very early on, I kept looking at my dad in uniform, and I saw him as my hero. And very early on, he instilled within me the core value that those who cannot protect themselves deserve to be protected. And I wanted to follow in his footsteps, so I did. And I joined the NYPD in 1997. And I wanted to do everything within the NYPD, and I really tried to. I was a cop in Midtown. I was on the SWAT rescue team, the ESU unit. I was a cop and a detective there. I was promoted, and I was a sergeant in the 4-4 precinct. Then I went through the FBI Academy. I came back, and I decided to throw my hat back into Manhattan, but at this time in a suit. So I went as a commander, or first as a whip, and then a commander of detective squads, the 7th, the Midtown North. That's where you and I met.
Right.
And the 9th precinct. Then I was promoted, and I went to, I was a lieutenant in the 4-3. I was a lieutenant commanding officer in the forensics unit, or the ECT unit, the evidence collection unit. Then I went to the gang unit. And after that, I was promoted to captain. I served as the executive officer of the 77th precinct in the Crown Pacific Heights area of Brooklyn. Then I was the executive officer of the 7-3 precinct in Brownsville. I was a commanding officer of PSA 3, which is 7 precincts, Brooklyn North, all the housing developments within there. And I was the commander of the 70th precinct. That was my final stop. I didn't know it at the time. But the city was upside down. We were going through riots. Bail reform had hit, and my officers were being handcuffed, trying to do their job, going out every single day, removing loaded illegal firearms off of the waistbands of the same individuals, sometimes same guys 2, 3, 4 times, and they were out collecting their property to go home before my officers were even done processing the arrest. I saw cops going out with fear in their eyes, not fear of losing their life. We understand that. You raise your right hand, that's a possibility, but this fear was deeper. It was losing their job or potentially their freedom for doing the job that we ask them to do, that society needs them to do. And I took a look at the seat that I was sitting in and the hat that I was wearing, and I realized I was sitting in the wrong seat and wearing the wrong hat to affect the type of change that New Yorkers so desperately needed. So I met up with Congressman Zeldin, and we were very close aligned in our ideology and what we believed in our vision for New York State and our vision for New York City. So I walked away from the career that I loved, and I love my cops more than my next breath of air. But I did this in part for them. So I left early. I wanted to outrank my dad. I wanted to serve more years on the force than he did. He was in his 38th year when he retired. But I walked away to serve the people of not only the city of New York, not only my officers, but the people of the state of New York and the people of the country.
How long are you retired now?
I left to run with Lee, so it's about a year and a half.
You said it was,
Ish.
you can go back, right?
No, I can't. No,
No, not anymore.
I can't go back.
Yeah.
You know, it's, funnily enough, I kind of say this jokingly, but I had a bully pulpit for a while, and I called out our politicians and local leaders and elected officials, and I'm not sure all of them would welcome me back with open arms after that.
Alison, Detective Jonathan Diller.
Tragic.
Disgrace, tragic, should not have happened. Why? I mean, where do we go from here? I mean, what?
So
Introduce again? Police officer?
detective.
Oh, detective. Joe. Okay.
Get back in your seat.
Do me a favor. The coffee's out there, will you? Thank God for Ed. So where are we going to go from here, Eric?
Say the same question again.
You want the same question
Yeah,
again?
then you go from there.
Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
So, Alison, Detective Jonathan Diller.
Tragic.
Tragic, horrible, disgrace. Where do we go from here?
It's an interesting question because I want to say we can only go up. But I would have said that with the tragic loss of Detectives Rivera and Moya.
Right.
I was at the funeral. I saw Stephanie give an impassioned plea. I looked at her and the grief that she was experiencing. I cried for her and with her. And she was begging our elected officials to protect the officers that go out every day and put a uniform on to put their lives and their families on the line to protect strangers. And she so eloquently said, she was a hero in her own right. She was so eloquently said 2 years and 2 months ago, a similar situation, a widow standing before these feckless elected officials, begging for change, begging to hold criminals accountable for their actions. So where do we go from here? I pray this is a turning point. I pray that people are waking up and realizing that a society that turns their back on their cops cannot exist. Right. Our officers go out every day, and I couldn't have been more proud to be among their ranks, but I couldn't be more proud of them today than I was yesterday or the day before. Every day these heroes go out in spite of these odds, in spite of the elected officials in New York State, Kathy Hochul, Letitia James, right, that have turned their back and making their jobs impossible. Look at Alvin Bragg. Alvin Bragg refuses to prosecute crime. He thinks DA stands for defense attorney. Yeah, right. Now, when Lee and I were running, we were campaigning on the issue that if he wants to be a defense attorney, fine, go do that, or go to the legislative branch to change the laws. But you're a district attorney. Your vow, your oath is to uphold the law and prosecute crime. And he is failing to do that. And he's putting our cops at risk. If you look at, there's so many people that love to say crime is down. Crime is not down. Okay? If you compare this year to last year, maybe crime is down a little bit. But that's like comparing inflation. You know, Joe Biden wants to say inflation's down. Great, it's down a point from a 40-year high. It's still ridiculous, and New Yorkers and Americans are finding it hard to either put food on the table or gas in their cars. But if you compare the numbers now, or the numbers in 2023 to 19, when bail reform took effect, you're going to see marked increases in murders, something like 27%. In grand larceny autos, 194%. Burglaries, 30%. Robberies, 30%. But it's not just that. Kathy Hochul loved to stand there and say, oh, it's a perception of fear. It's not really, crime isn't as bad as you think. Well, tell that to the New Yorkers that have to ride our subway systems. Tell that to the New Yorkers who are walking our streets and they don't feel safe anymore. This is a call, and Detective Diller's death, as tragic as it was, as unacceptable as it was, I am praying that with darkness will come some light, and we will once again hold our criminals accountable for their actions, and our elected officials will back our law enforcement.
And then, excuse me. And then the nerve of some of our local politicians think that, they should be there. For instance, Kathy Hochul, Governor Hochul, who basically barged in on the family as they were having a private moment with Detective Jonathan Diller.
That was amazing to me.
I mean, that's crazy.
That's not the first time it's happened. I've seen it actually happen. Another officer's funeral in Rochester.
Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, she is an individual. She barged in, to my knowledge, a private moment that the family was there, and she was asked to leave. It was explained to her that she's not welcome. That she needed to wait outside. I think at one point they were going to allow her to at least pay her respects, but she pushed it too far, and then she was asked to leave. She had the audacity to ask to speak at the funeral after that. Letitia James did as well. Now, Letitia James, while I'm running for United States Congress in New York's 18th District against Pat Ryan, while individuals like Pat Ryan were walking and marching with BLM and chanting to defund the police, I was in the mostly peaceful protests that were really riots in the city. And after those, or during those riots, because that's exactly what they were, when officers were in vans and people were throwing Molotov cocktails in the vans with them, when officers' pant legs were caught on fire because of incendiary devices that were being thrown at them, when I was standing there and I got hit in the head from a kitchen cabinet that was thrown off of a roof, burns on my legs, arms bloodied. Luckily, I had a helmet on, but we couldn't even seek medical assistance until they were done, and that was like 72 hours later. And Letitia James had the audacity to investigate not the people who were involved in the riots or the people that were funding the riots. No, she was investigating our officers for their response to a very dangerous and volatile situation. Our elected officials are failing us, and instead of supporting law enforcement and holding criminals accountable for their action, they're doing the opposite. They're going after law enforcement at every turn, and they're emboldening criminals to do whatever they want. And then you have someone like Kathy Hochul that is going to walk in or barge in on a private moment from a family that just lost their hero cop because of her policies, in part because of the way Alvin Bragg is prosecuting, in part because of the way Letitia James speaks about cops. These people are guilty. They're guilty of allowing this to happen. They're guilty of emboldening criminals. They're guilty of metaphorically beating our law enforcement to the ground so that you don't even have officers, you don't even have people that want to take the test and become cops anymore. No. And it's a shame, because I truly believe it's the best job in the history of the world.
Absolutely.
It's a way to serve. It's a way to help people. I mean, we don't get the thanks every day that other first responders get, that EMS deserves, that firefighters deserve, because usually when we come and see you, it's on your worst day. Right. I've got to take Daddy away because he's beating Mommy in front of Junior, or doing unspeakable things to my older sister. These are the times that we sometimes see our New Yorkers, sometimes see our Americans. So we interact on some people's worst days, and we have to make sure that we are not defunding our police, but we are funding, training, giving them the resources that they need to do a job that is so difficult with the compassion that we demand.
Alison, when you and I came on the job, and maybe also when Captain Ed was on the job, a lot of girls and boys left the police department, NYPD, to go to maybe Suffolk and Nassau for more money, maybe, the community, treat a little better. However, today, kids are leaving just to leave. I mean, they're just leaving not to go to another police department for more money. They're just leaving because they're burnt out. Yeah. They're really burnt out. The overtime, I mean, I know we always loved overtime, but today the kids, they can't get a day off.
It's not just the overtime. I mean, yeah, that's great. The overtime is fantastic, but at some point it becomes blood money.
Exactly.
At some point, when you're ordered in on every regular day off to stand in a subway system, and I have friends still in emergency service. So you have the SWAT rescue guys that are being ordered in regular police uniforms. Not, they're just down there, just not serving as a SWAT capacity, but just as a deterrent capacity. And I hear stories that, people are coming out of Dwayne Reed's or CVS's or whatever, and they have bags and bags of whatever, makeup, shoplifting proceeds of whatever crime. And they're not doing anything. They're not prosecuting them. Alvin Bragg isn't prosecuting. So the officers are taking them back upstairs with their bag of goodies and saying, give it back to the owner of the shop. Give it back. You're not getting on the subway until you give it back. It's not, but they're not prosecuting. So it becomes blood money. This is what they're doing day in and day out. You can't get a day off. You can't. You feel like it's a thankless position that you're put in, not just by the public, but in general. Imagine being a cop, and my job is to stop this thievery from going on, arrest the perpetrator and bring them to justice. Well, I can't arrest them because they're not going to prosecute it. So I feel like now if I get involved and he fights and it becomes an assault, am I going to be the criminal?
Exactly.
It's a very scary endeavor.
Very good point.
It's a very scary endeavor for our officers.
Yes.
And I really believe in change in leadership. When Lee and I were running, and even now that I'm running on the federal level, and you can attest to this. I'm sure both of you can attest to this. You work differently for a commander that has your back. You work differently for somebody who believes in you. You start to believe in them, and then you start to believe in the mission. And right now, we have people in power that don't believe in our officers,
Right.
and it's showing. It's showing on the streets. It's showing in the mass exodus, the retirements. Cops are vesting. They're just quitting.
Right.
They're quitting. They're scared on so many levels. And this is a very specific profession, right? I really believe in sheepdogs. I really do. I believe that's what we are. I believe that we are keeping the sheep safe, but we are able to do violence on their behalf. And we will keep the wolf out of the flock, but we need the sheep and the elected officials to back us in order for us to be able to continue to do that. It's something. There's something in you. There's a heart of a cop.
True.
It's that you take this job, and we're losing the hearts that are beating for the people of the city of New York, the state of New York, and the country of the United States of America. And I can talk to you all day about the heart of a cop.
Oh, a lot of people wouldn't do this job for $1 million, and we all have done it for a lot less.
A lot
Captain?
Well, it used to be referred to as the greatest show on earth.
It is.
At least when I was in the department, when your father was in the department, it was the greatest show on earth.
Yes, sir.
I think that if I had to come back now after being retired 25 years, I would probably go nuts. It's not the same job.
It's not, but funnily enough, I think that if I had the opportunity, I still wouldn't turn it down. I still believe it to be the greatest job in the world.
You were mentioning the people that were at the funeral. It's been reported in the news that there were quite a few anti-cop people there, like Brad Lander was there, and you mentioned Letitia James and Adams, who this controversial person who was on the verge of possibly being indicted, was there. Who knows how many others? But the audacity of these people who want to defund the police, who came out with all these stupid laws, restricting the police, like the chest compression law, at demonstrations, you have to get permission actually to make an arrest while a riot is going on. What nerve for them to show up? Yeah. It's ridiculous.
The attack on qualified immunity.
Qualified immunity.
They're trying to do everything they can to make our job or their job now. I still count myself among the ranks.
And I think that some of them will change when they become crime victims. They might change.
Didn't that happen in D.C.? Wasn't somebody a huge defund the police person until she got carjacked? I'm gonna forget which elected official it was, and then all of a sudden it was a problem.
Well, there's an old expression: when does a liberal become a conservative? When they get mugged.
Exactly.
Now, getting back, as you mentioned, I worked with your father when he was a brand new captain. He worked in the Patrol Bureau Manhattan South, where I was, and we were quite friendly. So it's very nice to know that his daughter is going up the ranks even higher than the PD. And what I want to say to you that if, I should say when when you become a congressperson, you would be the fourth member of the police department to do it. Now, I don't know if you're aware of it, but the first member of the PD that became a congressman was a guy named Freddie Heineman. Freddie Heineman was back in my generation. He retired as an inspector, and he became a congressman, I think, down south. And then you came Mario Biaggi, as most people know. And then we have Esposito. And there's going to be confusion when you're Congress.
Yes, there already is. He's Esposito, I'm Esposito.
Right.
Who's this? So I can see the confusion.
Yes.
We've had him on the show as well.
Right.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
But that's interesting because now there's a pattern has been established of members of the New York City Police Department going to Congress. And I think that's great.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's just a pattern of New York City. What I realized in last year's election, because remember, I'm a cop, I'm not a politician. And I say I'm going into government, but I'm never going to become a politician. Right. But what I saw when I stepped away from the police force to go into this level or this different path of service, there were people all up and down the state that were walking away from their jobs, their careers, their comfort zones. Cops are fighters. Laurent Singletary was the police chief in Rochester, and he was a Democrat until he saw his city being failed over and over again by Democrat policies. He walked away. He ran for Congress as a Republican. There were multiple police chiefs, business owners, attorneys that walked away because the country is worth fighting for. Right now, you have people that are attacking the very fabric of which this country was built upon. This is not, coming in 24, this is not a red wave. This is a red, white, and blue wave. This is a common sense wave. This is independents and Democrats and Republicans alike standing up and saying enough. The silent majority is awake, and we are coming for our country back.
Well, as a member of Congress, would you use your bully pulpit to help cities of New York?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the main reasons I walked away from my job was to help New York City, help New York State. We need to be able to back our law enforcement. We need to be able to put into effect if cities are not doing their jobs, if district attorneys are rogue and not doing their jobs. Well, guess what? Assault on a police officer, Mr. Bragg, if you're not going to prosecute it, it's a federal crime. I'll work to have that done. And even when I was running with Lee, I sat with Kevin McCarthy and the heads of the union. We discussed the possibility of getting a federal, making it a federal offense to attack and assault a police officer, not to mention kill a police officer. We have to separate. There was after Officer Diller was killed, or one of the articles where the witness was saying what happened. Officer Diller, a hero, an absolute hero, being able to disarm the man even after he was shot, a man with 21 priors, a car of two people with 35 combined priors. And people love to say that it's a gun problem, right? No. Yeah. You can put as many gun laws as you want. The only people that follow gun laws are good guys. Bad guys do not follow the gun laws, as absolutely emphasized by the fact that one of the guns, or the gun that was removed, had a defaced serial number, which means it was most likely a stolen gun. So they don't follow the laws. But the witnesses, to get back to my point, were listening to what was going on, and he's saying, I'm hit, but was able to disarm the assailant before he was able to shoot another cop. And the woman says, oh my God, he shot a cop. Like, that should be the reaction to that. That should be the fear, the anger, the shock and awe that you actually crossed that line and you shot a cop. Now, I know many, many years ago, you shot a cop and you ran into a building. Those buildings were shut down. Aviation came from everywhere. And neighborhoods would feel the presence of the police for weeks. Drug dealers would feel the presence of the police until that person was brought to justice. There is a difference. If you are so brazen as to shoot and kill a cop, what are you going to do to the mother on the street or the grandmother in an apartment that you want so you can sling your drugs? This is another level, gentlemen.
Well, it may be time to bring back the death penalty for killing a police officer. That one time that was in effect. Mm-hmm. If you read the history of police murders, most of them went to Old Sparky.
Yeah. On Sparky.
Right.
I'm not sure they do that anyway, right? Isn't it injection now?
Yeah, exactly.
But I like old Sparky. That's an interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I did some research, and very few cop killers got away with.
Yeah. Well, there
time.
needs to be a level of protection for our law enforcement officers. You know, whether people say it's a deterrent or not, it's a level of protection, and it's next level if you're going to fire on a new. And this was what 5:50 in the afternoon during the week. Right. I mean, these offenders are brazen now. They're emboldened, and you know we're actually doing a disservice if you look at it to the very communities that these elected officials say that they're protecting. You know, it used to be where we would, let's say we get a kid who's 14 or 15 or 16 with a gun on his waistband, but it's his first offense, right? We get him into the system, he's going to have to see a judge. Now, they're out 2, 3, and 4 times. By the time he sees a judge, he's already got 3 weapons possessions under his belt, and now he has to, instead of having him monitored or a program or police, you know, maybe being able to counsel him, we're losing kids to the other side. And then the younger they are now, they're feeling like, well, if nothing is happening to my friends, I can carry a weapon. Right. So now I'm carrying a weapon and I get involved in an altercation. Guess what? I now have that weapon on my body, on my person. So now I take the shot, and I've ruined 2 lives, and we could have saved them. And this is it's all having a ripple effect, and it's affecting the communities that they are purporting to serve the most. It's a facade. It is smoke and mirrors.
It is.
On a federal level, when you're in Congress, what would you do in terms of legislation to help the police nationwide?
Well, that's one of them. That's it. You know, the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. You know, the ability to weigh in if they're not being prosecuted, if cop killers aren't being prosecuted, if an assault on a police officer isn't being prosecuted, that should be a federal offense. We have to make sure that our police officers are backed. We have to give them funding and resources and the ability. Now, my opponent, Pat Ryan, he's you know, a sanctuary city guy. He refuses cooperation with ICE when he was the Ulster County executive. He calls guns weapons of war, right? He says, oh, the weapons of war that I used have to be taken out of police hands. No, those are weapons of defense. You can put a rocket launcher in my hand and this entire community is safe. Nothing is going to happen, okay? But even in Minneapolis a couple of weeks ago, the police needed an armored vehicle to go to a hostage or a barricade situation, and it was firing into that vehicle. These are not weapons of war. These are weapons of defense, especially placed in our law enforcement's hands. So my opponent wants to take those weapons away from them. I'll do everything I can to fight against that. I'll do everything I can to fight for our Second Amendment. It's ludicrous of what's going on.
Are you familiar with the old Law Enforcement Assistance Administration?
Law Enforcement Assistance.
The LEAA, Law Enforcement Assistance Administration.
I'm not sure.
Well, it was created after the riots of the '60s. There were two aspects. One was to college-trained police officers, and the other was to encourage local jurisdictions to come up with different plans. In fact, I went to college on that bill. It didn't cost me anything, and it was a very good program. It sort of phased out. Would you be considering something like that?
Hey, it's the Good Greek Spiro, and I have some exciting news. Good Greek has been awarded National Mover of the Year. You've trusted the Good Greek for decades with your family's moving and storage needs. Now Good Greek is proud to be the nation's top mover. So when it's time for you to move across town or across the country, trust America's best mover, Good Greek. Go to goodgreek.com for Good Greek, the National Mover of the Year.
Good Greek Moving and Storage, your superhero movers.
I would look into anything that would get more quality candidates through the door in law enforcement. See, we see it happening across the country in colleges and schools, and you know the loss of meritocracy. We're just getting anyone in. I want to make sure that the right people are officers. You know, we always strive to do better. It's officers. You know, we believe in transparency. Nobody hates a bad cop more than a good cop. You know, we want the right people. So I would be open to any legislation that would allow for communities to select the right people, representative of their area, of their community, to be able to protect and to serve. You know, I don't believe in unfunded mandates either, though. You know, you have the state coming down and saying, well, you have to hire 25 new law enforcement officers based on this criteria, and we'll give you the money for the first 2 years. Well, then what do we do afterward? We have to make sure that we're not just blanket telling these local jurisdictions what they need to do. We have to give them the support so that they can hire and train properly the right candidate for these jobs.
Well, that was the focus of the LEAA. As I said, it was developed after the riots of the 60s, and the idea was to have better educated police officers and better equipped communities to deal with these problems.
Yeah, I love it.
I don't know what the reason why it went out of existence. It was around for about 15 years and it's gone. But I would recommend that you look it up.
Sure.
And maybe perhaps, propose something like that again.
No, like I said, local jurisdictions, any way the federal government would be able to help them, I would be interested in doing that because we need police officers on the streets, and it's not just even about filling a quota or a number of people. It's when you are undermanned, it's a danger not only to the other cops but to the community. Response times go up. You see it all driving the city. Don't call 911 if you have an accident. Pull over, exchange information. We don't have the ability to respond to these things anymore. We're trusting you to do it yourself. Please don't hold up traffic. Don't get into a fight over the accident. Don't kill each other.
Right.
Do it yourself. We have to do everything we can, and you will have law enforcement will have a supporter in me. It is my first love. So
these radical DAs, we have to hold them accountable. So the district you're running for, that would be Orange County Prosecutor's Office. How would you compare that Orange County Prosecutor's Office to Bragg's office?
Well,
we'll start there.
Bragg's office, I don't count as a district attorney. I think he is shirked his responsibility. He's failing to uphold his oath of office. He's turned his back on New Yorkers, and not just cops. He's turned his back on good, hard-working, everyday New Yorkers that just want to travel from point A to point B without becoming the victim of assault or the victim of a robbery, or New Yorkers that want to go into their local Duane Reade and get shaving cream without having somebody come out and unlock it. I mean, everything has gone by the wayside in New York, and it's because he doesn't want to prosecute low-level crime. Well, what happened to prosecuting low-level crime before it turns into higher-level crime? Turnstile jumping. How many turnstile jumpers are armed? How many? I mean, remember when you're a cop, you were down in the subway. That's what you were looking for. They're going to draw my attention to you. I always said to perps, you drew my attention to you. Now you've got my attention. Don't be upset you got my attention, Right. But Alvin Bragg wants us to turn away from attention that's being drawn to lower-level crimes. That's not the way it works. Broken windows theory is a real thing. And like I said, we could always strive to do things better. We don't want a community to feel that they're over-policed. We want our officers to be as much a member of the community as possible. I worked longer hours than I ever was at home, so I always marked myself among the community that I served, a member of the community that I served. And I saw firsthand after bail reform went into effect and criminals, repeat offenders were being let out on the streets, the same people that Bragg is saying that he's protecting, we had people in the housing developments. We had older grandmas begging, please give me back my cops. I can't walk through the lobby anymore. They're slinging drugs out there. I can't get out of my vestibule. I can't sit on the park benches. I'm being accosted. It's a fear now. There's problems that are going on. Please, I am a disabled individual, and it's summertime, and my window's open, and I don't have air conditioning, and all that comes in every second of every day is marijuana that's just floating into, and I can't escape it. I can't get out of this apartment. Everything that we stopped prosecuting had a ripple effect that went through these communities, these unintended consequences. And Bragg is a rogue district attorney, and Kathy Hochul has the ability, the constitutional authority. We do not have recall elections in New York State, but the governor has the constitutional responsibility to remove a district attorney that is not that is failing to uphold their office and not prosecuting crime. And that should be done immediately. If she wants to make amends with the police department, the people of the city of New York, and the people of the state of New York, she removes Alvin Bragg. She sends the shockwave that's needed throughout these rogue district attorneys. And she says, once again, in my state, we will hold criminals accountable for their actions. You want to make amends to Stephanie? You want to make amends to little Ryan Diller, who's going to go through life without his hero father? Then Kathy Hochul, I say stand up. Pat Ryan, I say stand up. Letitia James, I say stand up. And I say Alvin Bragg, stand up and start doing your jobs. Apologize and hold criminals accountable.
Is there any way on a federal level to take Bragg out? Maybe on a constitutional level where he's not fulfilling his job.
I don't know if that's a constitutional maybe.
Well, there'd have to be a lawsuit brought.
It would be a state constitution thing, I believe, and then there would have to be some kind of some level of investigation. Now that could probably be brought about by the Department of Justice or a federal attorney. I don't want to sit here and be able to speak exactly to it because I'm not 1,000% sure.
I think you should consider it.
Yeah.
There are, for example, the 14th Amendment is the Equal Protection Clause. Perhaps you can find some section of the Bill of Rights or the U.S. Constitution that would relate to what he's doing. And maybe on a federal level you can get him out. Because everybody is talking about he's not doing the right job. He's useless. He's disobeying the law. He's not fulfilling his sworn oath. But no one's doing anything about it on a local or state level. And mainly because the state is run by all the Democrats, and he's part of that party.
Right.
But I would think maybe you can explore on a federal level
definitely
what possibility there is to remove somebody like him
Sure.
who was not fulfilling his office even after he swore the oath. I think you took the oath, I took the oath, Kevin took the oath to uphold the laws of the state of New York and the Constitution of the United States.
Right.
You remember that? And all these
Like it was yesterday.
Yeah, he took the same oath. What good is the oath if you're not going to do what you're supposed to do? So there's an idea.
A few
for you.
elected officials, I might say, what good is the oath if they're not going to do?
If you come,
we might have a list.
Yeah.
I think it's worth researching.
Absolutely. I'd be willing to look into anything or any suggestions that anyone has that they think would help us fight this. I hate to say that we're in a fight.
Well, you know what
we're battling.
I suggest you speak to Alan Dershowitz, who's the leading constitutional authority. And he's always on this station.
Okay, I would be excited to hear his thoughts on it. Absolutely.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Alison, you aware of Donald Trump's anti-crime plan?
I am. And actually, I think most of it we touched upon. These are all
pretty much part of it.
Yeah, he wants to go after rogue district attorneys, right? He's going to use the National Guard if the state's failing to secure or failing to protect their people, right? He's going to deny funding to states that aren't cooperating with ICE, that aren't deporting. We have a very big problem in our southern border, and we sit here as New York City cops. 2023, 300 known terrorists from special interest countries crossed our southern border, 400 from our northern border. That's who we caught. There were 2 million gotaways. We have no idea who's in this country. And 2 weeks ago, we got a guy crossing the southern border that was part of Hezbollah that said, I'm here to make a bomb. They are here. The farther we get from September 11th, the closer we are to September 10th. So we must do everything we can to secure our southern border, to find out who's in our country, to get rid of the criminals that have infiltrated our country, the illegal aliens that were smuggled from cartels, the gang members, the terrorists on the watch list. You have a failure, a complete failure at our southern border. And it's not just Joe Biden. It's people like Pat Ryan, who is my opponents, that believed in sanctuary cities, that made Ulster County a sanctuary county, that refused to cooperate with ICE. You saw Kathy Hochul get cute after they started busing the migrants up to New York, right? She was like, oh, we're going to be fine. Give us your cold, you're tired, you're hungry. And then how long did it take for her to turn around and go, whoa, wait. You see it in Denver now. They're like, we can't sustain this. We don't have enough money. They're telling the migrants in Denver, we'll pay for your ticket. Go to New York and go to Chicago. They give you more free stuff. Right. This is what's happening. So, yeah, I am aware of what President Trump wants to do. I would welcome his support to New York State to back our law enforcement, to use the National Guard where states who are failing, to allow for corroboration, to allow for ICE and the police departments to communicate so that we can determine, who shouldn't be in our country. And again, I'm all for conversations where I know, when you talk about responding to like a domestic incident, and you have two people that could possibly be migrants. We're not routinely asking your immigration status. We don't want to deter you from saying someone committed a crime against you. You don't want to go after the victim. But when you're telling me you arrested a perpetrator for a violent crime and you're not going to return him to ICE to get him out of the country, right, we have a problem. Sure do. 2 months ago, I think it was, you had a whole bunch of males come across the border from Georgia with ankle bracelets on. And then they come at President Trump saying, oh, well, they're emptying out their prisons. No, that's ankle bracelets. They're emptying out their prisons. That's exactly what they're doing. And now, and even going more towards the terrorist side, in October, 20,000 single male military age from China crossed. That's up 4,000%. It was 400 people in 2021. Why are they here? Yeah. What's going on? Is it because the border's open? Is it because there's farmland that needs it? They ask for asylum. The CCP knows where they are. Once they are turned down for asylum, they're not welcomed back into the country, and their families are still there. So they owe China. So we have a problem. Oh yeah. And these are facts. This is not like the conspiracy theory. We have a problem. We have to make sure that we're protecting our United States citizens, and right now we're not. And our taxpayers are at their wits' end. In New York State, we're like the highest tax in the union, the highest budget in the union. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous the amount. I think we're $233 billion for a budget. We're overtaxing our people. People in New York are freeing to cheaper, freer, and safer states. They can't handle it.
You all have friends selling their homes in upstate New York and Long Island?
Yep.
Going south.
Why? Yeah. Freer, cheaper, and safer states. Absolutely. Lee used to say it. New Yorkers are at their breaking point. And he would say, and it's funny, but it's not funny. There is nobody, no family sitting at a kitchen table in Texas or the Carolinas or Florida going, oh my God, I can't handle this anymore. I'm overtaxed. My kids' education, there's a war on education. The teachers aren't teaching facts. They're teaching opinion. I have to get out of here. I can't afford to put bread on the table and gas in my car. I have to get to New York. I have to go to New York. Said no one ever. Right. We are mismanaged. They're not protecting their people. They're overtaxing them. There is an attack on our children's education. There's so much that we need to do as a country. This is, especially when you're talking about global our children's education. This isn't just competing with Jenny down the block. This is global competition. We need to set our children up. It doesn't matter who you are, where you live, suburban, rural, inner cities, out of cities, what gender you are, what color your skin is, or what God you pray to. Every American child deserves quality education, and every parent should be as involved as they wish, as they can be in their child's education. I love our teachers. I think they're fantastic. I grew up with teachers. They were friends I grew up with in life and in the career, and it was always a big joke. I said to the teachers, if you fail, I get them, so don't fail. I said that to them all the time. But now you have curriculum that's being put forth. Now, my teachers love their kids. They worry about their kids. But this curriculum teaches our children to hate each other. It teaches our children to hate the greatest country in the history of the world. It teaches them to hate America. But what's worse is it teaches them to hate themselves for who they are, what they look like, and where they come from. And that is absolutely unacceptable. You as a teacher, your job is to teach reading, writing, arithmetic. You teach my children facts. I teach my children values. That's my job.
Right. True.
Other than the what you talked about before, are there other legislative policies that you would consider?
Well, I think we have to do a lot in this country for mental health. I think that's a big problem when it comes to crime and public safety. I think I hear people all the time say that forced care is not compassionate, and I would push back on that hard. Saying that forced care is compassionate. more so than stepping over an individual laying in their own filth on a 30-degree sidewalk. That's not compassionate. We're better than that. It's much more, forced care is much more compassionate than allowing somebody to take out their demons or to perceive you as a demon on a New York City subway track and throw you in front of a train. So we have to do more in the way of funding, research, and whether it be supplies, housing, care, medical facilities, to be able to deal with the mental health issue that we have. And again, so it's mental health, it's public safety, it's law and order, it's border security. That's legislation has to be passed. Pat Ryan even voted against the Laken Act. Joe Biden has me so confused. Every time I say Laken, I think I'm saying it wrong because of his Lincoln. But he voted against that. He's voted against border security. So it's crime, it's public safety, it's border security, it's mental health, it's our children's education. These are the inflation. Inflation. We have to lower the regulations on businesses. We have to lower taxes. We can be energy independent, not only in the country, but in New York State. We sit upon the Marcellus and Utica shales. We can be safely extracting our natural resources, not only bringing jobs back to New York State, we could be exporting energy to the country and to the world. But now we have weak leadership in the Oval Office right now. We have lost our footing on the world stage, and we're paying billions of dollars to our adversaries who are not mining the resources as cleanly as we would. And we're giving them billions of dollars. Look at the appeasement with Iran. We removed the sanctions on Iran. Now they're flourishing. Their proxies are hitting us. We were attacked more than 150 times in the Red Sea area. Are you kidding me? With very little retaliation. I don't believe the war in Ukraine happens under a different administration. I certainly don't think the atrocities, the sexual atrocities, happen in Israel. I was in Israel 3 or 4 weeks before the October 7th attacks. I walked those streets. I met people there that were stuck over there when it was happening. My heart broke for those people, and we still have American hostages there, held by a terrorist organization that our commander-in-chief, who, by the way, the leader of the free world, who's not mentally fit to stand trial, but mentally fit to lead the free world, it's the truth.
Good point.
It's the truth.
Good
and we
point.
still have American hostages there.
What's your opinion on the sanctuary cities, or to better state, would you cut funding to these sanctuary cities?
No more sanctuary cities. No more. I mean, they're realizing it themselves. Give us your toll. You're cold, you're tired, you're hungry. An impassioned Kathy Hochul that was being cute and kind of giving it to the government. We'll take it. We'll take it. Abbott and DeSantis, keep sending them to us. Thousands are coming across their border every day. You're sending hundreds to us, and we can't handle it. So no more sanctuary cities. We have to find out who's in this country. We have to secure our border. We have to deport those gang members and those felons and those people who are not here with any good intention, not here traditionally asylum seekers. They haven't traveled through ports of entry. They are in no need for asylum, no need for political asylum. We have to back our border patrol and border protection, I should say. They need the funding. They're now processing and then releasing them back into the country. Remain in Mexico has to be brought back immediately. Begin again the construction of the border wall. I was down at the southern border. I saw all of Trump's steel, all of the stuff that we were creating this secure border wall with, that is now laying there, not being used, and the Biden administration is selling it off for pennies on the dollar, just so that they're not using the prior administration's materials. This is the taxpayer funded. When I was at the border on these border towns, I was visiting the hospitals. I was visiting the food banks. They're inundated and overrun, and the empathy by the doctors and these volunteers is still so very high. They had these food banks, and it's a bag. And they showed me the bag of goods that a family would need for the month, right? And these are families that have jobs. They're just, because of Biden's failed economic policies and the high inflation and the taxes and everything else that's going along with it, they can't make ends meet. They still have a job, but they can't make ends meet. So they get this bag. And it was like a bag of rice, 2 cans of whatever kind of vegetable, and then a couple of vegetables. This is a family of 4. There was almost nothing in there, because they're being overrun by the migrants that are coming across the border. And if you talk to the hospitals, We spoke to doctors. These are, when I talk to you about like unfunded mandates by the government, oh yeah, you have to treat everybody. Well, who's paying for the medication? They're not paying. The migrants don't have insurance. The federal government isn't giving enough to keep their doctors are working 24/7. The nurses are working 24/7. They're running out of supplies. And then they're dealing with emergencies or acute, cases that are coming over the border. So if you're pregnant, you can't go to this hospital. You have to drive 80 miles away to go to a hospital that's not dealing with emergency situations. And it's just, it's a humanitarian crisis. What we're doing on the world stage when it comes to human trafficking, sex trafficking, and child abuse and sex trafficking, it's absolutely bizarre to me that anybody on the left side, that anybody in the Biden administration could look in the mirror at themselves. We know these children are coming in here. They have a name of a person. Nothing is vetted. No one is vetted. They're being sent to these homes. You see that there have been news reporters that have risked their safety to follow these vans where they're loading children in. What is this for? Now, listen, I hate to always jump to the worst case scenario, but we know what it's for, all right? We are failing these women and children. We are, and I dealt with a lot of sex trafficking when I was a commander, more than I want to admit. And it's horrible. It's horrible to see what happens. We have a humanitarian crisis at that border, and being at the border firsthand and having the officials, the local electeds, point out where the rape trees were or where the cartels exact their last toll before they let them cross, where they'll rob and beat and rape before they let them cross. I mean, it's absolutely horrible, and it's of our own making. It's of Biden's making. He came in on day one, and he removed the very, very strong border policies that the previous administration had put in place. He pushed everything away because it had Trump's name on it. He opened our border, and I call on him every moment I can to close it. With executive action, he can close the border today. He likes to whisper into a microphone, go, give me the money. It's so creepy. It is so weirdly creepy.
He is.
He doesn't need the money. He can close the border today.
True. Alison, congestion pricing.
Oh, it's so ridiculous. It's another tax on the middle class.
Unbelievable.
It's another way for Kathy Hochul to reach into our pockets. It's absolutely ridiculous. And who is it going to affect? You know, it's going to affect our first responders, our teachers, our nurses, people that can't afford it as it is. And now you're going to add an exorbitant tax. Already you have to pay for it in a cab. Now you're going to add this exorbitant tax to everyday workers, to blue collar, to middle class workers that are just trying to eke out a living and make it by. And what are you going to do? Inadvertently, you're going to create congestion in the other boroughs because everybody's going to try to be negotiating around this ridiculous tax. This is not congestion pricing. This is an illegal tax, in my opinion. We keep doing everything we can to fight it. Leah and I would stand on the bully pulpit. I've been screaming about congestion pricing since I announced my candidacy for lieutenant governor. I will continue to try to fight it in any way possible.
Yeah, first responders should definitely be exempt.
Shouldn't be there.
Right, exactly.
It shouldn't be there. Because, I mean, yes, they should definitely be exempt, but so should the bread delivery guy.
Right.
You know, you have people that are not making the money to be able to provide for their families. And then you're going to charge, what is it, $23 to go into Manhattan?
Right. Shouldn't have it at all. Shouldn't have it at all, as you said. But if it does come, I'd like to see the first responders exempt.
First responders, teachers.
Yes.
You know, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Teachers, doctors, I totally get it. Captain?
I'd like to finish up with this question about Trump says that if he is elected president again, it would be the largest deportation in American history. And I have consistently said you cannot do that without the help of the police. Because, as you know, the police are often the first ones to come in contact with the illegals for various reasons. And there was a time when I first came in a job where it was policy, New York City police policy, to detain people suspected of being here illegally and turning them over to ICE. When Koch became mayor, he issued an executive order to stop that. And that's been in effect ever since. So my suggestion to you is when you are in office is to bring this up where the police have to be involved. And I I think of the idea of deputizing. You can do this on a federal level. You can deputize local police to give them the authority that ICE has, if the jurisdiction will go along with this. But the police have to be an integral part of any deportation problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the fact that these sanctuary cities, brought about by people like Pat Ryan and Kathy Hochul, the fact that they refuse cooperation, and de Blasio started it under him, was we're not talking to ICE, we're not going to communicate with ICE. This is unacceptable. Our officers are the frontline defense. And again, I mean, I can have a conversation with you all day where, a victim as opposed to perpetrator. I have no problem having that conversation. When you're talking about a perpetrator that is arrested for a crime in New York, or anywhere in the United States, arrested for a crime, they should be detained by law enforcement pending a notification to ICE and an evaluation of their eligibility to be in this country. And then if they are criminals and they are here illegally, we have enough of our own criminals that we have to deal with. Send them back to the countries that they came from and let their countries deal with their criminals.
Agreed. Yeah. Alison, if you were elected mayor tomorrow of New York City, not that you're running, not that you're going to run, but if you were to run and you were to win, if you were the mayor today, what would you do different than what Mayor Adams is doing right now?
Well, I would probably be doing this in Kathy Hochul and Joe Biden's face. This is, you have turned my city upside down, and it is going to take a true leader, somebody with a public safety background, somebody who believes in their officers and their city to turn it around. So day one, I am going after Kathy Hochul to get rid of Alvin Bragg. I want criminals held accountable for their actions. I am going to back my officers. They would feel like they had the backing of their mayor. Instead of micromanaging and having everything run through City Hall, I would make sure that my police commissioner had the ability to make decisions, to make choices. I thought, Keishant Sewell was a phenomenal police commissioner. I was very saddened to see her step away. The police commissioner now, Caban, he and I were inspectors together. I think he's a great guy. But I want to see a mayor that backs their police. I want to see a mayor that doesn't speak the words, just talk. Right. Oh, today is a sad day. No, no. These days should never happen. Right. And it's prosecuting criminals. It's allowing police officers to do their jobs. It's making sure you use the bully pulpit to force the city council, because the city council is a huge problem. Right. The city council is a huge problem. Yes. They keep passing these anti-police laws. Now, as the mayor, just like as the governor, you have leveraging power, you have budget power, you have the ability to put your thumb on the scale, and that thumb needs to go on the scale until the city council wakes up and realizes there's no more defunding our police. We fund them, we train them, we give them the resources that they need to do the job that we demand them to do with the compassion and the professionalism that we demand from them.
We should take away their cars that they don't deserve. Like Jumaane
the cops?
Williams.
Oh.
Cars.
No,
Jumaane
I thought
Williams.
you meant the cops'
For example,
cars.
Jumaane Williams, who's a public advocate, a useless position, has a police detail, and he has a vehicle. And as Curtis Lee was always say, he lives on Fort Hamilton base. Now, he doesn't deserve a car.
No.
And I think if he took the car away, they'd come by crying uncle.
Well, you know what? You have an entire class of elected officials that have forgotten that they work for us, that this isn't a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And they have forgotten to put people before power. It's power in this administration, make no mistake, above all else. So that's where the cars come in. That's where the detail comes in. That's where the I am so important comes in. That's where I'm making these decisions. You know why? Because it doesn't affect me. I'm not walking the subway in the morning. I'm not taking the subway to go to work in the morning. I'm not walking Times Square and being accosted by Elmo, or stepping over people having sex at 6 a.m. because that's not the time that heroin addicts get hit off. There's a lot of things that are happening in this city that they're shielded from. And so they sit in this ivory tower, if you will, and they make these decisions. But no, you have to put the thumb on the scale. This city is going in the wrong direction. The state is going in the wrong direction. The country is going in the wrong direction. You don't think China's emboldened? You don't think Iran is emboldened? You know, you see that the terrorist organization, what they're doing. I mean, the fact, the travesty of justice in Afghanistan, every single thing has been affected by the weak administration that we have in there, by the sanctuary city policies, by the lack of respect for law and order, by the lack of backing of law enforcement, by the lack of funding to our military and our border protection. This is all common sense. This is all common sense. So if I'm mayor tomorrow, I would have a lot of work to do, but rest assured, if the day after I am elected mayor, the city would feel it. There would be a relief on the faces of the cops. There would be a burden taken off of their shoulders, and the city would once again wake with hope that a new day is on the horizon. We will once again have law and order in the safest large city, or the safest city in the world, and we will bring back tourism, prosperity, jobs, economy, safety, and education back to New York. Our public school students deserve more. $35,000 per kid to go through in school. Where's that money going? My public school teachers buy their own supplies. Right. There's a lot we could do.
I like it, Alison.
Well, I'm going to vote for you.
Okay.
So how can anyone contact you?
So AlisonEsposito.com is the website. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, Alison Esposito or Esposito for New York. All of the links are on AlisonEsposito.com for YouTube, for Twitter, for Facebook. You can go to my website. I encourage and request volunteers and donations because Pat Ryan is a Soros-backed individual. So that's another guy that's trying to undermine our country and putting rogue DAs in and putting congressional candidates in like Pat Ryan that seek to undermine the very fabric of what America was built on. So donations are very, very welcomed. Any kind of volunteers. I am in the District 18, a bedroom community of New York City, Orange, Ulster, and Dutchess County. A place where I grew up, a place where I call home, a place where I love. And I'm going to bring common sense and integrity back to that office. And then Washington's going to have the fight they deserve on their hands because they haven't been putting our people first.
Right. Did you go to Monroe Woodbury High School?
I did. I'm a Monroe Woodbury grad, Crusaders.
Okay, there you go. So is my daughter.
Oh, really?
Yep. So, all
Not
right.
the same year.
No, maybe a little couple years after you. But Alison, we wish you the best of luck. Thank you for being a guest today on Cop Talk.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Alison Esposito, running for New York 18th Congressional District up in Orange County.
Yep.
And have you met with any of the police unions yet?
I have started to. Really, most of the unions or most of the individuals I met with was during the gubernatorial race. Obviously, I'm still in contact with our unions,
right.
But then the FOP upstate, and I've been trying to get to Shields meetings and talk. Good. I'll talk to anybody who will listen because what I see now is false media narrative, dangerous political rhetoric, and just the sheer appealing to the smoke and mirrors, touching on feelings and not facts, what the left does. I'll talk to anybody who wants to have a civil conversation and understand the problems that we're facing and what my ideas are to change the trajectory of the...
You got a great message, and hopefully we can help you get it out there as well.
I appreciate it.
Captain?
Well, I think you're a great candidate.
Thank you, sir.
And if you run for president, you'll have my vote.
Well, that's maybe not this time around, but maybe we'll consider that the next time.
Well, I can't vote in your district because I live here in the city.
Okay. But, well, I appreciate you helping me get the word out.
Right.
And I appreciate the support. And I do appreciate being on the show. It was fun.
Thank you. Everyone, Alison Esposito, running for 18th Congressional District in New York. Get the vote out. She's someone we need, especially not only for law enforcement, but for everyone who's really looking for the change that we need. Yeah. Instead of just talking about it, let's do something about it.
And cops, they complain, but they don't vote. Every cop is +8. Family cares. They want to hear that Velcro at the end of the night. You got to get out and vote. Every election.
Get the vote out. You got to get out there. Your friends, your family, spread the word. Mm-hmm. Everyone, thank you for listening to another episode of Cop Talk. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to Cop Talk. You could also follow us on Twitter at Cop Talk WABC. That's at Cop Talk WABC. Until next time, God bless you, God bless America, and God bless law enforcement throughout the country. Thank you.